Welcome to another edition of Town Meeting with your Town Administrator. Hi, I'm Bob Rittenauer, Town Administrator here in the town of Yarmouth. And every time I look outside and when we see the daffodils start to bloom, we know it's that lovely time of year, town meeting season. And I like to prepare a small show for everyone to just walk you through our town meeting process, hopefully to demystify it a little bit and create some enthusiasm for folks to come out and join us at the annual town meeting and help make the decisions of the town. You know, the local residents in our community are the most important part of the entire organization. You folks are the voters that comprise the legislative body for our town government, and it's your decisions that give us our marching orders for the entire next year. Now, we have our annual town meeting here in the town of Yarmouth coming up on April 29, 2025, and it is going to be held at the Dennis Yarmouth Intermediate School over on Station Avenue in South Yarmouth. So you want to make sure that you can attend that. And in addition to the town meeting, write this down: on Tuesday, May 20, that's local Town of Yarmouth Election Day. Check your precinct, make sure you're at the right place. Most folks vote at the senior center, but not all of our precincts. So make sure you head out and vote on Tuesday, May 20. But for April 29, what I'd like to do today is spend a little bit of time running through the agenda for the annual town meeting. And our annual town meeting agenda is comprised of a series of what are called articles. Each individual vote that is taken at a town meeting is organized as its own separate article. We bring up the articles, and in this town meeting, we're going to see articles 1 through 34. And encompassed in that list of articles is every piece of town business that is going to set this town up so that on July 1, we can start our new financial fiscal year and move things forward. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about these articles. I'll tell you what each article is for, why it's there, and hopefully give you enough information that you can gather some more on your own, listen to the discussion, and be prepared on April 29 to vote on each article, because no articles take effect without a vote of town meeting. So the first thing that we need to talk about is the key items of business at an annual town meeting. That is also known as our key financial town meeting for the year. All of the annual budgets are established at the town meeting: the capital budget, the operating budget, the school budget, and we're going to walk through each of the articles, and you'll see the organization that all of these financial articles fall under. The first 9 or 10 articles comprise all of our operating budgets. The second 9 or 10 articles comprise all the capital spending. And then we get into some of the other town business items that require town meeting vote and are just as critical. So what we do at town meeting, after we say the Pledge of Allegiance, the town moderator calls on each individual article. And it starts off for this town meeting with Article 1 will be any budget adjustments for the current fiscal year. These are items that were voted last year. If there are any line items that are falling short, we'll put those in front of town meeting for any additional funds that we may need to finish the fiscal year. And this year, we have one such budget adjustment. It is in the Department of Public Works, and we're seeking an additional $70,000 to be transferred from the town's free cash, which is its unreserved fund balance, for the purpose of snow and ice removal. Now, this year we had a little bit more ice than we had hoped to have. They spent a lot of time out there sanding the streets, keeping them safe, and there's a $70,000 shortfall in that account. So through Article 1, we hope to make that shortfall whole, and then we can cleanly close out fiscal year 25. The remainder of the financial articles move into the budget that will start for all of the town departments for fiscal year 2026 which runs from July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2026. And after we take care of the budget adjustments in Article 1, we move right to Article 2, which is really the meat of the town meeting, and that is the omnibus or combined municipal budget. Now, the budget articles are broken into categories by the source of the funding, and it starts with the largest major one, which is all of the general government funding. These are the funds that come largely through property taxation and the local fees that we collect. So Article 2 goes through each one of these general government town departments, and we'll walk through individually those with the moderator. Any questions on any budget, please feel free to ask for a hold up your hand, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. It starts off with the select board budget, moves all the way through the financial items, recreation, police, fire, building, health. All of those budgets are done in Article 2. And the total amount for all of the expenses under the general fund budget is approximately 51 million, a little bit less than half of the total budget. So once Article 2 is finished, we move into the additional articles that we wanted to separate out the funding for. Now this year, there's a special article that we've placed on as Article number 3. And all of the town budgets have been balanced within Proposition 2.5, except for a new staffing initiative that we've moved forward with in the fire department. And as a result of the strategic planning that we've done, we've really honed in on the fact that the number of calls, primarily these ambulance calls, has really skyrocketed over the last 10 to 15 years. And we just haven't kept up with the staffing that's required to have the appropriate level of manpower to address all of these calls. And Article 3 sets aside funds in the total of $845,476 for the purpose of hiring 4 new firefighters, a new fire supervisor, and also conducting a small restructuring of the wage scale for firefighters to modernize that and ensure it's competitive in our Cape Cod environment. And the funds required for that simply do not fit under the Prop 2.5 guidelines that we meet for all of the town departments. This is a new initiative requiring new funding. And the vote for Article 3 will be subject to the approval of a Proposition 2.5 override ballot question, which will appear on the May 20 town election ballot. And the funds are separated out from the operating budget such that in the event that the override ballot question does not pass, the Article 3 items will not be implemented. And that way you can easily separate it without requiring an additional town meeting vote to balance the budget. Simply these fire department staffing initiatives, which we hope that will be supported, are contingent upon having the ballot question as well. So there will be some great discussion on that item. And completing Article 3, we move into some of the special revenue account budgets. And by special revenue, we mean some of they're referred to as enterprise funds. These are town operations where all of the revenues are derived from the operations of that department. And they stand alone as if it's a separate business. It comes under the town, but the property taxes don't go toward it. Only those revenues created in that enterprise or business. And the next one, the first one we deal with is Article 4, is the golf enterprise budget. And this is the sum of $5,541,000 for the annual operations of our entire golf division, and 100% of those costs are paid for by the revenues we derive from the golf fees. Very similarly, we move into Article 5, which is the Water Division budget. And that tops in at $5,785,444, and 100% of those expenses are derived from the fees for the water. So it's kept separate from the general government because it has its own fees and it operates as its own business. Similarly, Article 6, we fund the septage enterprise budget, which operates our septage plant, where when folks have their septic systems pumped, the trucks deliver it to our own septic plant where it's treated and released as clean water. That totals $3,198,679. And again, 100% of the septage budget is derived from the septage revenue. Article 7 is the wastewater enterprise budget, which is funded entirely from the wastewater enterprise fund. And these are the startup costs that we need to continue to build the town's new wastewater system. We hope by 2027 we'll be in operation, but we've got a lot of work to do. And in the meantime, there is $800,000 in wastewater expenses that will support that capital effort. And all of the construction money, obviously, is in a previously approved bond authorization, so we don't need to approve those amounts every year, but we're gearing up for wastewater, and it's soon to come. Article 8, we move into the cable, television, and communications budget. Now this funds all of the town's public access cable origination and communications, and it's funded 100% from the fees that are assigned to the cable television contract, and we derive them, so no additional funds from taxation go towards the public access or communications, and that's Article 8. Once we have all of those special revenue funds taken care of, then we move right into the business of education, and Article 9 is the approval of the Dennis Yarmouth Regional School District budget in the amount of $44,865,765, which is an amount that has been derived with the close cooperation between school and town officials, and the recommendations are unanimous among the Select Board and Finance Committee to support the $44,865,000, which does not require any Prop 2.5 overrides, and we thank the school department and school committee for all of their hard work in putting together a great budget for our community. Similarly, Article 10 is the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School District budget. That comes in at $3,832,480. And once again, I thank the Cape Cod Regional Tech School Committee and Superintendent for their hard work in putting together a good budget, and these funds are available within our Prop 2.5 levy limit as well. So those are the first 10 articles, and once we get through 10 articles, all of the operating budgets for fiscal year 2026 have been approved. And as I indicated, the next grouping will be the capital articles. And you'll see a pattern here. They're organized in the same fashion as the operating budget, where Article 10 takes the Gulf capital expenses, which are 100% paid for through the Gulf retained earnings account, and they total $245,000 for the next fiscal year. We have an interesting bond approval and authorization in Article 12, and it is for the septage enterprise fund, and the project is the equalization tank rehabilitation, and that is really a mouthful, but it's a fascinating process that all of the raw sewage that's pumped from folks' septic tanks into the truck is put into this equalization tank while it awaits treatment. What's fascinating is that it creates a very caustic, toxic environment within the tank that over time breaks down the actual concrete surface of the tank. And the tank is, at this point, over 25 years old. So there is a $4,400,000 project to rehabilitate and redo the inside of that tank so it can give us another 25 years of life, we hope, in that caustic environment that hopefully we can all talk about but never see up close. Having completed our equalization tank, we move into Article 13, is the Water Division capital expense, again, separated from everything else, derived entirely from Water Department revenues. Their general capital comes in at $1,312,000. And we have, in addition to the general capital, 2 more bond authorizations. And we go into the bond authorization or debt service. We acquire debt to do some of the major projects. You'll see it's only when a project is in excess of $1 to $2 million. It's just more than you can pay with cash at once. And usually they have a very long life. So we spread the payments out using a bond. And Article 14 is one such bond, and it is for $5,050,000. And it is for treatment for PFAS in our water supply wells number 10 and 11. And the PFAS, or forever chemicals, the polyfluoro chemicals, they are not to be present in the town's water. We have a system in place where we do testing every day, and the PFAS chemicals, it's a major challenge to the town, but we're staying on top of those by doing the testing daily. And we found 2 additional wells require treatment to remove those chemicals so that all of the water that is pumped is PFAS free. And Article 14 addresses that for wells number 10 and 11. Article 15 is a supplemental appropriation and bonding of $2 million for water main improvements, updates, upgrades on Route 28. And if you will recall, 2 years ago, we appropriated $15.6 million to upgrade the water main along Route 28 in conjunction with the wastewater construction. Now that saves us thousands and thousands of dollars by having the roads dug up at the same time, and we do not want to come back after wastewater is completed and dig up the roads again. And we've determined that an additional $2 million is needed to be added to the 15.6 so that the total budget for Route 28 water line improvements in conjunction with that major wastewater project will be $17,600,000, and we'll be able to complete all of that work at the same time we complete the wastewater line work. And when Route 28 is repaved and improved, it'll stay like that. And that would be Article 15. Article 16, we continue along the same vein of the capital spending, and we have a 4-year lease-to-own program for 4 police cruisers. And it's a very innovative way to use those lease-to-own programs that enable us to spread out and equalize the payments for these vehicles every year. And at the end of the lease period, we own the vehicle and we can trade in and move forward with replacing other vehicles. And the key thing is it doesn't create spikes in our vehicle investment and then the next year it's nothing. And that really wreaks havoc on the revenues and how things work. So we try to equalize those payments out so that folks can have a dependable amount each year. If we invest this certain amount, that we will keep the cars in good shape. And that is the police cruiser financing, Article 16. Article 17 is the fire department capital expenses. Now these are separated out from the general fund because the fire department capital expenses are derived from the ambulance fees. And that is a source of funds that's not used for any other department. So we have a separate article for fire department capital expense under Article 17, $347,000, and that will come from the ambulance fees. And then Article 18, another bond authorization for the purchase of what's called a quint pumper in the fire department. And this deserves a little explanation, and I'm dying to hear the chief explain this at town meeting to the local residents, because I think it's an innovative strategy that deserves a little credit. The fire department has an older ladder truck that is one of the large ladder trucks that's all it can do is move to where a fire is and put up the big ladder, and it's so old that the structural integrity on this equipment, especially the ladder and other pieces of it, doesn't last forever, and it requires replacement. And they've selected what is called a quint pumper, which is a hybrid vehicle, not hybrid in the gas-electric sense, but it is a all-in-one kind of a jackknife vehicle. It combines a small ladder truck with a fire engine truck that's a pumper truck, so it can hold water and pump water, and that way it can fill dual purposes at a very sustainable investment rate. It eliminates the requirement to have highly specialized pieces of equipment, and the more we can have these multi-purpose vehicles, the more that helps the department become more agile, a better firefighting team, and it's also very economical for local residents. And I salute the fire department for their innovative work on coming up with a solution like that. And I think we all should take a moment at town meeting to tell them thank you, because it costs a lot less than buying a pumper truck and a ladder truck. Then after we do the special revenue capital, we move into Article 19, which is the capital expenses for the various general government departments. And that is a list of approximately 31 individual items, the total cost being $4.6 approximately million. And you'll get an explanation of any one of those items. I need to mention that thanks very much to the Capital Programming Committee, our Assistant Town Administrator, William Scott. We have a highly detailed capital improvement program that goes out 10 years for projects, 40 years for debt, and each one of these expenses has been thought out, programmed, vetted, and it doesn't reach town meeting till it's been in the system for quite some time. So you can have confidence that there's been a lot of family arguments over every item in here, and these are the ones that survived the process. After we do the various departments, then we move into, at that point, that's the second 10 articles. So all of the budgets are done, all of the capital items are done. We move into some other general items that require approval of the town. For example, Article 20 will be an easement for electrical service given to Eversource by the town of Yarmouth for service at the Water Resource Recovery Facility, which is our new wastewater plant under construction, obviously power user, and we need an easement so that the electrical line can be brought into that property. And that requires any easements, anytime you buy land, sell land, encumber land, comes right to town meeting, and the residents have to vote on that. So that's Article 20. Article 21 sets aside funds for wage adjustments that are in collective bargaining and non-union contracts that are under negotiation or will be soon under negotiation for the time period in 26, but those amounts haven't been finalized, so they're not placed into the town's budget until the numbers are finalized. But this reserves funds to enable the town to settle collective bargaining agreements and then to fund them so we don't have to return to town meeting during the year. And Article 22 is the rainy day fund for the town. It is about stabilization financing. They call our rainy day funds the stabilization fund, and it's a great name because it helps stabilize town finances. And we've had the free cash this year, again, unreserved fund balance. And this article seeks to take $2 million from the unreserved fund balance, known as free cash, and place it in two separate stabilization funds that will help the town stabilize its expenses in future years. And there is $1 million being transferred to the capital stabilization fund, which goes towards the capital items from the various departments we discussed in the earlier article. And we're also placing $1 million in the wastewater stabilization fund. And the wastewater fund, that will help defray the costs of implementing our new wastewater system, and it smooths and ramps us up into the debt service payments we need for that article. Again, we try to do the financing without spikes and valleys, to smooth everything out and make it so that we can depend on what the amounts are. So that is a positive financial move for the town to fund up some of our rainy day stabilization funds so that we'll be prepared to meet future challenges in a very sustainable way. After Article 22, then we move into the community preservation articles, and we have a series of articles. It's 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28. All of those articles are for community preservation. And if you'll recall, community preservation comes from a surcharge on your property taxes, which provides funding for affordable housing, open space, and historic preservation. And Article 23 establishes the minimum amounts for those reserves. Article 24 are the community preservation affordable housing projects. Article 25 will be the community preservation recreation projects. Article 26 will be the community preservation historical preservation projects. And then in 27, they're creating a reserve for future open space purchases. And in Article 28, there is a long-standing balance of $33,587 that was in the old land bank expense budget, which the land bank, if you recall, was the precursor to community preservation. It was only for land, and obviously that's been expanded to include affordable housing, recreation, historical preservation. And so that $33,000 is being transferred from the old land bank expense into the newer community preservation, where in the future it will go towards individual projects, but right now it's just going into the reserve. Following that, you're finished with all of the community preservation, which very popular program. It really allows us to do certain projects that may not be able to compete with some of the more emergency related needs that we have in the town government. So we're very thankful for community preservation. The next article is Article 29, which appropriates funds from our Tourism Revenue Preservation Fund, which takes a portion of the hotel motel excise tax and sets it aside to promote our community. And it's approximately $520,000 split into special events, marketing, public improvements, and that is an annual process that is administered through the town. And Article 30 is a very interesting article for a feasibility study for a new town common in the area that is near the old MacArthur and Simpkins School and all the way across Route 28 to the town hall. It's sort of a town common area, and when we had the Simpkins School project and study committee back in the early 2000s, there was a recommendation at that time that a town common would be an appropriate use for that location. And due to funding constraints, it was never moved forward. So now we're going to bring that back in front of the town and get your feedback on the study. It's approximately $100,000 in that article for a planning and feasibility study for a new town common. And that's Article 30. Article 31 is a property disposition, that we have a piece of town property our land disposition committee has identified as superfluous. It's really a very small 0.07 acre sliver of property that through a bid process we hope to transfer to augment a neighboring single-family home. It is entirely unbuildable. It'll make their yard a small bit better and create a tiny, little, probably property tax increase for the town. But the town doesn't need to own a tiny sliver of 0.7 acres next to someone's house. It's actually better off, we hope you'll agree, being transferred to the abutting property owner. Article 32 are some additional costs for the maintenance of the Matakees School building, the former Matakees School. And again, we have a Matakees Utilization Committee that's wrapping up this work within the next 6 months, we hope, to a year. And we'll have future uses for that facility. But in the meantime, it's a very large building. It's very expensive to maintain it so that it is safe. And that's what we're seeking to do with Article 32. And Article 33 is a petition to the legislation for special legislation relative to our Division of Natural Resources. And we've had changes in state law that has included the Police Officer Safety and Training Act. They call that POST, and it has created new requirements that each one of our Department of Natural Resources officers has to become a certified Massachusetts police officer, has to attend the full-time police academy that all police officers have to attend, has to go through all of the exact firearm training and be a police officer. There's no more police officer light categories that exist. And in doing so, now that these folks are certified police officers with the full academy training, this special legislation seeks to transfer them into the same retirement system account that normal police officers fall under. So we're glad to talk about that some more at the town meeting, but it's something that's been a long time in coming, and it matches the new requirements from the Police Officer Safety and Training Act. And that's Article 33. And after that, we only have one more left. It is Article 34, and it is our implementation of the so-called HERO Act, where we're adopting a section of that act which will grant an annual cost of living increase to the property tax exemption that is received by veterans in our community. So if you are a veteran that is subject to a property tax exemption, those amounts have all in the past been frozen, and this will tie those exemptions to the consumer price index. So each year, those folks will be eligible for a cost of living increase in that exemption. And with that, we've completed Article 34, and that's the entire 2025 annual town meeting. Folks, please look on the town's website, yarmouth.ma.us, for a complete copy of the town meeting warrant and recommendations. We'll have these books available at the town meeting, but there's a lot you can do to study before you get there. But I'm so happy it's town meeting time, and I look forward to seeing all of you folks out there, and happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you very much, and we'll see you at town meeting.